What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. This is my full card breakdown and prediction video for UFC Saudi Arabia. We have Israel Adesanya going against Nassourdine Imavov. We are right back after it after a 1 week break, and it looks like we have at least 12 cards in a row coming up. So a lot of content, a lot of fights coming our way, and I'm looking forward to it for sure. Before we get into it, if you guys could, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment. All three of those things go a very long way. If you guys do want to go the extra mile, support me more, and get more content, check out dfsbythenumbers.com. That's where you'll find my bets, my stats, and just a ton of other content, DraftKings content, Prize Picks content, my full card breakdown and best bet article, my Hail Mary props, Hail Mary parlay, just a ton of other content on dfsbythenumbers.com. Had a great start to 2025, 5 units on the first card, 6 units on the second, and looking to continue the momentum into February here with a very good fight night card. Was supposed to be, I think, a 13 fight card at one point. We're now down to 11 fights. We lost Balaji Oki versus Kareem Abdul Al-Sawadi. We also lost Ikram Al-Askarov versus Andre Beniz. But in terms of a fight night card, I think this card's phenomenal. We got an early start time. These fights are kicking off at 9 o'clock in the morning, which is cool as well. So yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to breaking these fights down. I do have a couple things I want to shout out. First of all, got to shout out the winner for the significant strike contest for Islam Makhachev versus Renato Moicano. So it's a weird one, because it was originally supposed to be Islam Makhachev going against Arman Tsarukyan, and the guesses were probably higher, right? But it got changed to Moicano versus Islam, and instead of just redoing the contest, I decided to stick with it. So the correct answer was 15 significant strikes, and the closest was Hisaroz 420 with 17. So shout out to Kisa Rose 420. You were closest. Hit me up on Twitter or Instagram with your PayPal or Cash App, and I will get you your winnings. So yeah, good guess. I mean, he didn't know it was going to be Moicano in there, I don't think. So yeah, shout out to him for that. I do also want to shout out Prize Picks. Right now, if you go to Prize Picks, use code DFSBTN, you will get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Whether your lineup wins or loses, you'll get $50 instantly into your Prize Picks account. Highly recommend it. Check it out. It's a free $50. And then also, highly recommend getting in on the free square here. Patrick Mahomes to get more than 0.5 yards in the Super Bowl. It's going to happen. It's a lock. There you go. Take your free square. Use that code DFSBTN. Get your bonus. Get your free square. And go from there. All right. With all that out of the way, guys, I say we get into it here. We're going to start with now. This is the first fight of the card. We're all going to wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast. On the West Coast, you guys are going to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and watch this BS. Oh my gosh, what a terrible fight this is. But yeah, let's talk about it, break it down. We got Jamal Pogues going against Hamdy Abdelwahab. We got Jamal Pogues, 29 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach, 11-4, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Hamdy Abdelwahab, he's 32 years old, 6'2" with a 73-inch reach, 3-0, and 3-0-1 no contest in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. I feel like nobody should be favored, and that's exactly what's happening here. So Pogues opened at -110. He's currently -110. Hamdy opened at -110. He's currently -110. So we have not seen Hamdy in a very long time. I think it was about a 2.5-year layoff. This guy got like a massive suspension for PEDs. He must have been on like a lot to get that big of a suspension. And he fought Dontel Mays. It was a close competitive fight. He won the first round. He hurt Dontel, and he lost the second round. He got hurt in the second round, almost finished there, and then he kind of controlled Mays in the third round, but ended up being a split decision, I believe. One of the judges did score the fight for Dontel Mays, but yeah, wasn't too impressed with that performance. But Hamdy, he does have a Olympic background. The dude's, pretty big, pretty strong, has some power, but I'm just not sold on him. On the flip side, though, I'm not sold on Jamal Pogues. Jamal Pogues is a light heavyweight that is fighting up at heavyweight. I mean, this guy, I remember watching him prior to his Contender Series fight. I was watching the dude. I was like, yeah, he looks in great shape. He's a decent striker, some solid wrestling as well. And then he shows up against Paulo Renato Jr. on the Contender Series, and I'm like, Who is this guy? I wasn't watching tape on this guy. He showed up about 60 pounds more than what I previously watched. He showed up with this weird haircut. I think that's in the picture right there. This terrible hairstyle choice. And I'm like, who is this guy? With that said, he still won the fight, but geez, I think he'd fare a lot better down at, his natural weight class would be like a light heavyweight. But yeah, in terms of this fight, I think it's your typical sloppy, greasy, gassy fight where it's just going to be terrible and awful. And I think it has split decision written all over it. I think Hamdy's going to try to get takedowns. Will he have the cardio, though, to get takedowns and wrestle against Pogues, who does have a wrestling background, I believe? Hamdy probably not going to be on steroids this time. I'm not convinced. Jamal Pogues is going to be the better striker here. Hamdy kind of just loads up and lands big shots. Pogues, the more technical. I think it's going to go to decision. I think it's going to be a split. I'm going to take Jamal Pogues to win a split here. Maybe get taken down early, but have the better cardio down the stretch, have the better striking down the stretch. But this should be hilarious. I don't know if I'm waking up at 9 to watch this, and if you're on the West Coast waking up at 6, you're sick, but respect. All right. I do want to watch this next fight, though. This fight's going to be fun. We got Bogdan Grad going against Lucas Alexander. We got Grad, who is 29 years old, 5'8", with a 70-inch reach, 14-2 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Lucas Alexander, 29 years old, 5'11", with a 73-inch reach, 8-4 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. So a lot of line movement on this fight here. Bogdan Grad opened up -200, currently -120. Lucas Alexander opened up +170. He's currently +100. This line has moved a ton, and I would not be shocked if this line potentially flipped in the very near future. But I do think it's a close fight. I do think a pick'em is a lot more accurate than the -200 where Bogdan Grad opened up, because skill for skill, I think Alexander has a ton of skill. I really like the striking. He trains with really good guys. I believe he's in the same gym as Mike Davis and some of these other guys. But yeah, I think he's a good striker. The grappling is questionable. He's been submitted 3 times. The takedown defense is questionable for sure, but in terms of the striking, yeah, the striking is good. Hits pretty hard. That Steven Petersen fight was a very good performance. Pretty much outclassed him over 15 minutes, hurt him here and there. I think Alexander's a very good striker. On the flip side with Bogdan Grad, he's one of those guys who he makes up for his lack of skill with his other attributes, right? Like, he's going to bring a ton of toughness to the table. He's going to bring a ton of heart to the table. He's a walking punching bag. If you go back and watch his Contender Series fight against Michael Aswell, he went out there and was literally landing like 2 to take like 5. I mean, this guy got outlanded 155 to 102 officially on the significant strikes. He was getting pieced up, blocking punches with his face. They did give him the decision, which I completely disagreed with. I thought Michael Aswell won the fight, but yeah, what Grad did show there was just toughness, heart, determination, coming forward, and that's enough to win some fights. So I think Grad probably has the better cardio here. I think he's the tougher, more durable fighter. Alexander, I think, has been finished in all 4 of his losses, including a loss against Sergei in his last fight. So that worries me, but I'm leaning Alexander here. I don't think Grad's going to have a ton of success with the wrestling. Maybe he can mix in a takedown here or there, but I do think it's going to be Alexander just pretty much piecing up Grad across 3 rounds. But yeah, I like Alexander here, but I would have liked him much more at the +170. I think a pick'em is about accurate for this fight. Moving on to the next fight, we got Jasudavicius going against Bueno Silva. We got Jasudavicius, 35 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach, 12-3 and 4-1 in her last 5 fights. Bueno Silva, 33 years old, 5'6" with a 66.5-inch reach, 10-4 and 2-2 and 1 no contest in her last 5 fights. Jasmine opened at -250, currently -230. Bueno Silva opened up +190, currently +190. So I think it's a very interesting fight to break down here. A very interesting fight because Jasudavicius needs to get the fight down to the ground. She needs to get the fight down to the ground in every single fight she's going to be in, because she's a walking punching bag. She has that Bogdan Grad striking defense. She's very tough. She can take a shot, but she is very, very hittable. And she's going to get fighters down. She's gotten a lot of fighters down. And in this fight, she's going to get Bueno Silva down. Silva can't defend a takedown, and really, she's not probably going to try to defend a takedown because she doesn't mind being off her back. She's won a lot of her fights off her back. She has a very good armbar. She has a very good submission game. She's very, very dangerous. So Jasmine, I think, absolutely needs to get the fight down to the mat, and when she does, she's going to be put in danger. It's going to be up to Jasmine to fight out of those positions, be smart, stay safe on top. And if she does that, she's probably going to make it look very easy. But, Mayra Bueno Silva, she's dangerous. She has power on the feet. Like I said, she has a really good submission game. She's aggressive with that submission game. But as long as Jasmine can mind her P's and Q's on the mat, just feels like a 30-27 Jasudavicius here for me. So I like Jasudavicius. I think she's going to win here by decision. But Silva, she could be live for the sub. She could be live for the sub. But yeah, Jasudavicius by decision, I think, is the most likely outcome here. Next fight, we got Mike Davis going against Ziam. We got Mike Davis, 32 years old, 6 foot with a 72.5-inch reach, 11-2, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Ziam, he's 27 years old, 6'1" with a 75-inch reach, 16-4, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. There's been a lot of line movement on some of these fights, including on this fight here, because Mike Davis opened up -125. He went all the way to -250 for a while, and then he's currently -140. Ziam opened up +105, and he went up to like I think almost +200, +210, and he's currently at +120 now. So a lot of money has came in on Ziam. So Mike Davis is a very good fighter. I'm a big fan of Mike Davis. I'm always looking forward to seeing him go in there and fight. The problem with Mike Davis, though, is the inactivity. That's the only problem with Mike Davis. The inactivity, very injury prone, probably one of the most injury prone fighters I think I've ever seen. This guy gets hurt all the time. He's even coming off of an injury into this fight as well. I think it hurt his bicep or something along the lines of that. So yeah, Mike Davis has all the talent in the world, but just doesn't fight. You take a look, 5 fights ago was his fight against Gilbert Burns, which seems so long ago. That was 5 months and 8 months ago. After that, it was against Thomas Gifford. I will never forget that fight. That was 5 years and 3 months ago, where he beat the brakes off of poor Thomas Gifford. And then after that, he fought Mason Jones. That fight feels like it was forever ago, and it was 4 years ago. Then he beats Slava Borshev. That was 2 years ago. And then he beats Natan Levy 10 months ago. So in his last 5 fights, like 5 fights in like the last 6 years for Mike Davis, just very rarely fights. But when he does fight, he's very good. He's the full package. He can strike, boxing background, wrestling background, BJJ black belt, can get the fights down to the ground, he can tap you out, he can strike with you on the feet. Mike Davis, he really doesn't have any weaknesses. The cardio, it's not perfect, but he can go a full 15 if need be. He can wrestle for 15 if need be. We saw it in the Slava fight. So yeah, I think Mike Davis is a very good fighter, just can't get in there. But he's here now, and we're going to see him fight. So I think it's a good matchup for him. I know a lot of people are on Ziam. This lines came down quite a bit. And to Ziam's credit, I do think Ziam, he's made a ton of improvements. I think he's made a ton of improvements. But at the end of the day, it wasn't too long ago where Ziam was taken down 7 times by Claudio Pogues. It's just not a great look. That fight was not even a year ago. Yeah, that was like 11 months ago, that Pogues fight. I was shocked that Claudio Pogues was taking him down 7 times, because Claudio Pogues, he's a BJJ guy. He's not a wrestler. So, I mean, if Claudio Pogues is taking you down 7 times, I gotta believe Mike Davis is going to be taking you down as well. And it also wasn't too long ago where Terrance McKinney insta-tapped Ziam on the ground. And I think Mike Davis is just as good of a wrestler as McKinney, and probably better BJJ as well. So how I'm kind of seeing it is, yeah, on the feet, I do think it'll be competitive. If not, maybe favor Ziam. But I just think Mike Davis has a clear path here, and that clear path is going to be to wrestle, use that BJJ black belt. I think Mike Davis is going to tap out Ziam. So give me Mike Davis to win this fight. I'll take him to win this fight by 2nd round submission. Next, we have Terrance McKinney going against Damir Hadzovic. We got Terrance McKinney, 30 years old, 5'10", with a 73.5-inch reach, 15-7, and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Damir Hadzovic, 38 years old, 5'9", with a 70-inch reach, 14-7, and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. We have Terrance McKinney opened up -500, currently -470, and Damir Hadzovic opened up +375, currently +370. And yeah, I see what the UFC's doing here. They're trying to get McKinney back on track. He hasn't had a ton of success lately, 2-3 in his last 5 fights, coming off of a brutal knockout loss. Let's get Terrance McKinney back in the win column here. And they are doing so by giving him probably the easiest matchup in the division. Like, no joke, I can't think of an easier matchup here for Terrance McKinney than Damir Hadzovic. Damir Hadzovic has the worst takedown defense in the UFC. I don't think it's close. I think on paper it's like 38%, something like that, but it's very bad. A gust of wind can take down Damir Hadzovic. So Terrance McKinney has the opportunity to make this look very easy. And to do that, take down Damir Hadzovic. We've seen him taken down by pretty much everybody. He's been tapped out before. McKinney has great wrestling, great BJJ, but the problem with McKinney is he has just terrible cardio. McKinney slows down massively as the fight goes on. So I do think if McKinney's winning this fight, it's going to be early, and I think he has a great opportunity to do just that. If he goes out there and strikes with Damir Hadzovic, I still think he could win that fight and get a first-round knockout, but that's giving Hadzovic his one path to victory. That's what Hadzovic wants to do. He wants to go out there and stand and bang. So, yeah, if you're McKinney, take this guy down and sub him easy, right? Like, it's going to be very easy. You just got to do it. So, yeah, I'm going Terrance McKinney to win this fight by first-round sub. If he gets out of the first round, it could very well be bad, but I just don't see Hadzovic lasting 5 minutes. So give me Terrance McKinney by first-round submission. Oh boy, next we have Shamil Gaziev going against Thomas Petersen. We got Shamil Gaziev, 34 years old, 6'4", with a 78.5-inch reach, 13-1 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Thomas Petersen, 29 years old, 6'1", with a 74-inch reach, 9-2 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Shamil opened up minus 300, currently minus 330. Thomas Petersen opened up plus 250. Currently plus 270, and yeah, this is a fight that I'm going to be staying far, far away from. Shamil Gaziev at minus 330, I think is disgusting, and I'll be looking to potentially live bet Petersen as the fight goes on, because Shamil Gaziev I just think has awful cardio. I think he has about 7.5 minutes of gas tops, but past that, I really worry about him. With that said, though, I think he's probably going to knock out Thomas Petersen in the first round, and I don't think we're going to have to worry about that cardio. I just think that Shamil's going to have just so much more power than Thomas Petersen, especially on the feet. I don't think Petersen's going to be able to take down Gaziev, especially early on in the fight. So, yeah, I think Gaziev probably does clip Petersen and knock him out early. But, yeah, if this fight gets extended, it's going to be greasy. But I'll say Shamil Gaziev wins this fight. It wins it by first-round knockout. Should have the ability to keep the fight standing, and when it is standing, he hits hard. He hits very hard. Petersen's hittable, so I see him knocking him out Petersen early on. So, yeah, Shamil round 1 knockout. Next fight, we have Muhammad Naimov going against Kaan Ofli. We got Naimov, 30 years old, 5'9", with a 70-inch reach, 11-3 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Kaan Ofli, 31 years old, 5'7", with a 66-inch reach, 11-3 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We have Naimov opening up minus 245, currently minus 300. Kaan Ofli opened up plus 205. He's currently plus 250. So yeah, Ofli had 2 solid wins in the Tough House, and then in the Ultimate Fighter finale, just laid an egg. Just absolutely laid an egg. Just terrible performance against Marion Santos, where he was getting outstruck the entire time. Didn't attempt a takedown, which I thought was like weird. Like, why aren't you even trying to wrestle at all against this guy? But yeah, got outlanded 3-1 and then brutally knocked out in the second round by Santos. It's just a terrible look. So I've never been high on Muhammad Naimov. I think he's extremely overrated. But in this matchup specifically, I think it's probably a good matchup for him, because I don't see Ofli going out there and out-wrestling, out-grappling Naimov. I think these guys are going to strike, and when they do, Naimov should be the better striker. Naimov has power. Ofli coming off of a brutal knockout loss. I kind of see Naimov just knocking him out. So I'm not high on Naimov. I would never lay minus 300 on him. But in this matchup, I feel like it's a good matchup for the dudes. Yeah, give me Naimov. I'll take Naimov to win this fight by first-round knockout. Next, we have a very fun fight here. I'm looking forward to this one. We got Said Nurmagomedov going against Vinicius Oliveira. We got Nurmagomedov, 32 years old, 5'8", with a 70-inch reach, 18-3 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Vinicius Oliveira, 29 years old, 5'9", with a 70.5-inch reach, 21-3 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds here. Nurmagomedov opened up minus 300, currently minus 170. Oliveira opened up plus 250, currently plus 145. A lot of hype is building on Vinicius Oliveira after that viral knockout against Bernardo Sopai in the 3rd round. And then he got a nice win over Ricky Simone. But I'm just not really sure where this guy's at this point. I'm not sure how good Vinicius Oliveira really is. Because yes, he knocked out Bernardo Sopai, and that was a great knockout, don't get me wrong, but we got to remember, Bernardo Sopai took that fight on like 2 days' notice, and Bernardo Sopai beat the brakes off of him for the first 8.5 minutes in that fight. I mean, he was looking awful, just terrible, until Sopai gassed out and he got a late finish. And then he goes out there and beats Ricky Simone, but I think Ricky Simone is just extremely washed at this point. Ricky Simone's looked awful and hasn't fought since. Probably done at this point. So if he is able to beat Said Nurmagomedov, I think that would be an incredible win, because Said Nurmagomedov is very good. You know, you probably see the Nurmagomedov name and people think, oh, this guy's a wrestler. I mean, he can wrestle, but he doesn't really wrestle at all. Lands about a takedown per 15 minutes. He's a very good striker and very dangerous. He has that spinning back stuff he does, can hurt you, can knock you out, and he's a finisher. Probably the most dangerous Nurmagomedov that we've ever seen. This guy's finished, I think, 5 of 6 wins or 5 of 7 wins in the UFC. Can knock you out, can submit you, has an extremely dangerous submission game, really good front strokes. And so going back and watching some Nurmagomedov fights, and in the fights where he did wrestle, which he doesn't often, but when he did wrestle, he can wrestle very good and he can grapple very good. He took down Jonathan Martinez and instantly got to his back, almost choked him out. And I think it'd be wise for Nurmagomedov to go out there and maybe wrestle here a little bit, maybe grapple here a little bit. But even if he doesn't, Oliveira is one of these kill or be killed fighters where he's very hittable. He's very open to be hit. He wants to give one to land one, and I think that might end up very poorly for him. Nurmagomedov, I think he's very durable. Oliveira, I don't think he's very durable at all. He's been finishing all of his losses, so I just think Nurmagomedov is going to catch Oliveira at some point here, maybe with like a spinning back kick, maybe a spinning back fist, spinning back elbow. I think that's going to be there, and that if Nurmagomedov grapples, we saw what Bernardo Sopai did to Oliveira, and it wasn't good. So yeah, I like Nurmagomedov here. I'll say he wins by, I'll say submission, maybe like a club and sub for Nurmagomedov here. I'll say Nurmagomedov, second round sub. Next we have Sergei Pavlovich going against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. We got Pavlovich, 32 years old, 6'3" with an 84-inch reach, 18-3, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Rozenstruik, 36 years old, 6'2" with a 78-inch reach, 15-5, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Pavlovich, big favorite, opened up minus 200. He's currently minus 305. Rozenstruik opened up plus 180, currently plus 255. And yeah, interesting fight here. I think it all comes down to how Pavlovich attacks this fight. You know, Pavlovich, I was going back and watching all of his UFC fights, right? And there is a big difference between Pavlovich in his last fight against Volkov compared to his other fights, right? Against Volkov, he kind of played the whole heavyweight point fight versus Volkov, right? Just stayed at range against Volkov for 15 minutes. Like, you can't do that, right? Like, especially against Alexander Volkov, who that's his game. You can't stay at range and point fight with Alexander Volkov. You know, Pavlovich, I was going back and watching some of his other fights, like against Tai Tuivasa. As soon as the fight started, he rushed forward and started swinging dicks with Tai Tuivasa and knocked him out. Same thing with Derek Lewis. As soon as the fight started, rushed forward, tried to take his head off, and he did. Some of these other fights, if he's going out there, he's being aggressive. Against Volkov, the aggressiveness was not there, and he looked awful. He looked terrible. That was the worst we've ever seen Pavlovich look outside of the Overeem fight a long time ago, because he needs that aggressiveness. I think skill for skill, Rozenstruik's the better striker, but when you hit as hard as Pavlovich, it's not going to matter, but he needs to be aggressive. He needs to come forward with reckless abandon. If he does that, he's probably knocking out Rozenstruik in the first 60 seconds to 2 minutes. So, I'll chalk up his last fight against Volkov to being maybe it's because they trained together before, maybe it's because they were friends, but the aggressiveness was not there. If he brings the aggressiveness in this fight, I think he sleeps Rozenstruik in round 1. So I'll say Pavlovich to win this fight by first round knockout. And now we have the co-main event. It is Charles Magomedov going against Michael Page. We got Magomedov, 30 years old, 6'2" with a 73-inch reach, 15-0, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Michael Page, 37 years old, 6'3" with a 79-inch reach, 22-3, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Shara opened up plus 120, currently minus 195. Michael Page opened up minus 140, currently plus 170. And yeah, these odds make no sense to me. So first of all, both fighters are going to get the fight they want. Nobody's going for takedowns in this fight. No, it's not happening. It's going to be a striker's delight. It's going to be fun. Nobody's wrestling here, right? But I went back and watched a couple Page fights, and that Holland fight, like, Holland's strength is his striking. Like, Holland can't grapple. He can't wrestle. But what Holland can do is he's a really good striker. He's hung with some of the best strikers in the division. And Michael Page made Kevin Holland literally look silly. He made Kevin Holland look like he didn't belong. The fight wasn't even remotely close. And yeah, Page looked incredible against Kevin Holland in the striking. And then against Ian Gary, Page made Ian Gary look like terrible in the striking. I think Ian Gary landed only like 9 strikes against Page, and that is because Page has some of the best striking defense I think I've ever seen in my entire life. The quickness, the in and out movement, it is very, very hard to hit Michael Page. Shara Magomedov, really good striker in his own right, really good kicks, but he has a 42% striking defense. He is there to be hit. So I think the striking defense is going to come into play here. One guy is nearly impossible to touch, and that's Michael Page. And then one guy is there to be hit and welcomes being hit. He's a tough guy. So I think it's going to be a close fight, though. I think it's going to be a very close fight. I think it's going to decision. But I got to go Page here, especially at like plus 170. I just don't see in what world Shara's looking anywhere near minus 200. He's not going to wrestle. He's going to have a hard time finding Page. Page is impossible to find. So yeah, I got to go Page here. I'm going to take Page and win by decision. Probably a split decision. Probably a good chance of getting robbed, but I got to go Page and Page by decision in this one. I think it's a very, very competitive fight. And we got the main event. Israel Adesanya going against Nassourdine Imavov. We got Adesanya, 35 years old, 6'4" with an 80-inch reach, 12-4, and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Imavov, 28 years old, 6'3" with a 75-inch reach, 15-4, and 3-1, and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Adesanya, he opened up minus 200. He's currently minus 155. Nassourdine Imavov opened up plus 170. He is currently a plus 135 underdog. And this is a fight where I just don't have a ton of interest in from a betting perspective. And to be honest, I hate to say it because it's the main event, but as a fan, I don't know. I'm not too excited for this fight. Two high-level fighters, don't get me wrong, but in terms of this fight being exciting, I don't know. I kind of just see Adesanya doing his thing, kind of sticking on the outside, slowing the fight down, and being the better striker. But yeah, I think if this fight was 2 years ago, I'd be max betting Adesanya at minus 155 in a fight that I expect to take place on the feet for 25 minutes. The problem I have with Adesanya is I'm just not sure where he's at right now mentally. That Sean Strickland fight was a horrible look. I mean, that was the worst Adesanya's ever looked. Against Ziam, he did look very good there. He looked like he was back to normal, but did get submitted later in the fight. But yeah, I'm worried about Adesanya, and he's 35 years old at this point. Pretty much, we can see some regression. But yeah, in this fight specifically, it's hard to pick anybody in the division to go out there and outstrike Adesanya over 25 minutes. And yeah, Imavov, he can wrestle, but I absolutely don't think he has the cardio to do so. And I was going back and looking through Imavov's career, and it's like he doesn't wrestle much at all. He doesn't even land 1 takedown per 15 minutes. And like I said, if he does choose to wrestle, I don't think he has the cardio to do so. I went back and watched that Strickland fight. The dude was getting very, very tired, mid-fight, 3rd round, 4th round. And once he was getting tired, the volume started falling off. The hands started dropping. Very easy to hit against Strickland. So kind of see the same thing. I think early on, when Imavov's fresh, it's going to be competitive. It's going to be fun. But as the fight goes on, I think Imavov's going to start to slow down, especially if he wrestles. And Adesanya's going to pick him apart later in the fight. So I do think it'll be competitive. It should be competitive, especially early. But I got to go Adesanya here, and Adesanya to win this fight by decision. There you guys have it. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys could, again, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, check out dfsbythenumbers.com. That's where you'll find all my other content. A couple spots sticking out for this week. Couple plus money spots, some props. Not going to go crazy, I don't think. And I don't know if I'm waking up at 9 o'clock to watch, Pogues Hamdy, but we'll see. But overall, I think it's a good card. It should be fun, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. And by the way, again, if you guys want to check out that free square on Prize Picks, make sure you get in, use that code DFSBTN, and get your free 50 bucks when you place your first $5 lineup and get that free square as well. And I think other than that, that's about it. Best of luck. Be on the lookout for content throughout the week, and we'll talk to you guys soon. See you.